The phone rings, you already know who it is. You can tell by the time of day. You can tell by the pause before you answer. You can tell by the tight feeling that shows up in your chest before you even say hello. It's your mom or your dad. Their voice sounds careful, not panicked, but not relaxed either. They start with small talk. They ask how work is going. They ask if you're eating properly. They ask if everything is okay. And then there's that slight shift in tone, that pause. And then the words come out. Beta, we're a little short this month, just this once. We'll pay you back, we don't know who else to ask, and in that moment something very specific happens inside you. It's not anger. It's not resentment, it's love, it's duty. It's gratitude for everything they sacrificed. It's the fear of being ungrateful, the fear of being selfish, the fear of being a bad son, a bad daughter. Your mind doesn't go to spreadsheets or budgets. Your mind goes to memories. Late nights they stayed awake for you, bills they struggled to pay when you were young. Things they went without so you could have more. And so you don't think, you act. You open your banking app, you send the money, you tell them not to worry, you say it's okay. I've got you, you hang up the phone, and for a moment, you feel good, you feel like you did the right thing. But later that night, when you're lying in bed staring at the ceiling, there's a different feeling. A quiet one, a heavy one. And it sounds like this: how long can I keep doing this? This isn't a story about greed. This isn't a story about selfishness. This is a story about love mixed with guilt. And almost nobody talks about what that combination does to money, to families, and to futures. In many cultures around the world, helping your parents is not optional. It's not a debate. It's not a financial decision, it's a moral one. Parents are not just people who raised you, they are the reason you exist. They are the reason you survived childhood. They are the reason you had opportunities they never did. In some families, parents worked two jobs so their children could study. In others, they gave up careers entirely. In others, they migrated, sacrificed social standing, or lived decades with stress so the next generation could have stability. So when those same parents struggle later in life, the idea of not helping them doesn't feel neutral. It feels wrong. Helping parents is seen as honor, as loyalty, as character. And that belief is not wrong. Supporting your parents is not shameful. It is not weak. It is not something to be criticized. Ignoring your parents is not the solution. Cutting them off is not wisdom. And this conversation is not anti-family, but there is something almost no one teaches us. There is a difference between helping and enabling, and most of us were never taught where that line is. Because in families, especially close ones, that line is blurry, it's emotional, it's uncomfortable, and crossing it feels like betrayal. That's why this trap is so powerful. Because guilt doesn't just influence decisions, guilt overrides logic. When family is involved, money stops being money, it becomes love, it becomes duty, it becomes proof that you care. Behavioral psychologists call this emotional accounting. It means your brain puts money into different mental boxes depending on who it's for. Spending on yourself feels selfish. Spending on parents feels noble. Loss aversion kicks in too. The pain of seeing your parents struggle feels unbearable, so you act quickly to remove that pain even if it creates long-term damage. And then there's moral licensing. You did a good thing, you helped your parents, so any discomfort you feel afterward gets silenced by guilt. You're not allowed to question it. Because questioning it feels like questioning your love. This is why this trap is invisible, and this is why when guilt is involved, math goes silent. Let me introduce you to someone. We'll call her Kate. Kate is not irresponsible. Kate is not careless. Kate is not bad with money. Kate is in her late 20s, maybe early 30s. She has a stable job. She pays her bills. She's trying to build a future. She's thinking about buying a house someday. She wants a bit of savings. She wants security. Kate's parents, however, are struggling, not dramatically. Not catastrophically, but consistently. Bills feel tight, unexpected expenses keep showing up, income never quite stretches far enough, and when they call, Kate helps, not because she's forced. Not because she's manipulated, because she loves them, because she doesn't want them to suffer, because she assumes that help equals progress. She thinks, if I can just get them through this month, things will stabilize. There's no judgment here, there's no mockery, just realism. This is how it actually happens. The first time is an emergency, a medical bill, a late mortgage payment, a broken appliance. It feels justified. The second time feels temporary. Just until next paycheck, just until this issue is resolved. The third time something shifts. It doesn't feel like a crisis anymore. It feels routine. The fourth time it becomes expected. Not demanded, but assumed. The amount starts small, $500, $700, $1,000, then they grow, $1,200, $1,500. And the requests become more frequent, not maliciously, not intentionally, just naturally, because the rescue worked before. The danger isn't one transfer. The danger is normalization. Over time, Kate doesn't notice the total. She notices the individual moments. This month, this situation, this one-time thing, but money doesn't care about stories. Money only cares about accumulation, and when you finally step back and look, really look, something uncomfortable appears. It's not that the money was wasted, it's that it was misdirected. Over years, not months, 500 here, 1,000 there, just this once. It adds up quietly, and yet the core problem remains. Kate's parents are still stressed, still struggling. Still calling, same bills, same pressure, same fear. If money solved this, it would have worked by now. That's the uncomfortable truth most people avoid. Money is excellent at treating symptoms. It is terrible at fixing systems. It doesn't change spending behavior. It doesn't change fixed costs. It doesn't change habits formed over decades. It just buys time. And borrowed time always runs out. This is where the emotional conflict starts to tear people apart internally. Kate feels trapped between two truths. She wants to help her parents. And she wants a future. She's afraid that if she stops helping, she's selfish. She's afraid that if she continues, she'll never move forward. She's afraid of resentment later, either resentment toward her parents for holding her back, or resentment toward herself for not doing more. And no one ever told her that it's possible to care deeply about your parents and protect your future at the same time. You are allowed to care about your parents and your future. Those two things are not opposites, but they can become enemies if handled incorrectly. This is where we need to talk about enabling carefully, not as an accusation, not as a moral failing. Enabling is often unintentional, it's invisible, and it's almost always driven by love. Repeated rescue removes urgency, it removes consequences, it freezes change. When help arrives automatically, the system never has to adapt, and that doesn't mean parents are lazy, it doesn't mean they don't care, it means they're human. When pressure is relieved externally, internal change slows down. Love can accidentally delay growth. Kate didn't ruin her parents' situation, but she didn't fix it either. She gave everything she could, her parents stayed stuck, and now she's behind in life and terrified to stop helping. Because if she stops, what does that say about her? She had done everything she was taught was right, she helped, she showed up, she sacrificed quietly, and yet nothing changed, not because she failed, not because her parents failed. But because outcomes don't respond to intention, they respond to structure. So let's finally do the math Kate avoided, not to shame her, but to understand the consequence of a pattern that feels loving but quietly erodes futures. Over 5 years, Kate didn't send one large amount. She sent many small ones, $500 when the car needed repairs, $800 when the utility bill spiked, $1,200 when the mortgage came up short, a few hundred for groceries, a few hundred for insurance gaps. Each transfer felt reasonable on its own. But money doesn't experience time emotionally, it experiences time cumulatively. Over 5 years, Kate sent roughly $40,000 to $45,000, not wasted, not stolen, redirected. That money represented something specific. It was her emergency fund that never existed, her down payment that never formed, her ability to say no to a toxic job. Her ability to take a risk, change cities, or breathe during uncertainty. And here's the part almost no one wants to face. That $45,000 wasn't just $45,000. It was opportunity cost. If that money had been invested conservatively, not aggressively, not speculatively, it could have grown into 60,000 or more over time. That difference isn't luxury. That difference is margin. Kate didn't fail. She paid the cost of a system that never changed. This is why this conversation is so hard, because the outcome feels unfair. She helped, she cared. She did her part, and yet she's behind, not morally, structurally. This isn't unique to families. Economists have studied this pattern everywhere. Governments that repeatedly bail out failing systems without reform see the same outcomes. Companies that receive endless rescue capital without restructuring collapse anyway. Organizations that remove consequences without building capacity stagnate. Behavioral research shows that lasting change requires two ingredients at the same time: pressure and support. Remove pressure entirely and behavior rarely changes. Remove support entirely and collapse happens. Recurring bailouts remove pressure but don't create capacity. They keep people afloat without teaching them how to swim. This isn't about intelligence. It isn't about effort. It's about incentives and feedback loops. Humans adapt to systems. They don't escape them. When external money repeatedly fills the gap, the system never recalibrates. And this applies to everyone: families, businesses, entire nations. It's not a moral flaw. It's human behavior. Now let me introduce you to David. David isn't wealthier than Kate. He didn't have better parents. He didn't love them less. Same income, same cultural values. Same sense of obligation. His parents struggled too. Bills were tight, retirement savings were thin, unexpected expenses caused panic, and David felt the same guilt. The same instinct to fix things quickly, The same fear of being seen as ungrateful, but David did something different, not easier, harder. The first time his parents asked for money, he helped. But when the requests became recurring, David paused, not because he didn't care, because he realized something uncomfortable. If money was the solution, this wouldn't keep happening. So instead of sending another transfer, David asked for a conversation, not a lecture, a conversation. He sat down with his parents, and it wasn't pleasant, there was tension. There were hurt feelings, there was defensiveness. Because money conversations between parents and children invert a lifetime of roles, parents don't like feeling exposed. Children don't like feeling authoritative. David didn't come in as a savior, he came in as a partner. They went through income together, they listed every expense. They looked at fixed costs honestly. Not to judge, to see, and what they found wasn't shocking, it was normal. A house that was too expensive for current income, a second car that wasn't essential, subscriptions that went unnoticed. Insurance structures that were inefficient, lifestyle decisions made years earlier that no longer fit reality. This wasn't irresponsibility, it was drift. David didn't say, "You're bad with money." He said, "This structure doesn't work anymore." And then came the hardest part, change. They downsized the house, they sold the extra car. They reduced fixed expenses, and yes, his parents were upset. They felt embarrassed. They felt like they were going backward. They felt like they were losing status. This is important to say clearly. Doing this the right way is not painless. There is conflict, there is discomfort, there are moments where love feels strained, but here's what changed. For the first time, the pressure stayed in the system. And because the pressure stayed, adaptation began. David didn't remove dignity, he restored it. He didn't rescue them from reality. He helped them face it. Within a year, his parents stopped asking for money, not because they didn't need help, but because their structure finally matched their reality. By year 2, they had a small emergency fund. By year 5, they were stable, not wealthy, but steady. David didn't spend money helping, he spent effort. Kate spent money helping. And that difference changed everything. Why did this work? Because it restored agency. When people solve their own problems, they gain skills. When problems are solved for them, dependency grows. True help doesn't remove responsibility, it supports it. This is the line most families never define. Helping without dignity is not help, it's delay. This doesn't mean never giving money. It means understanding when money solves a problem and when it sustains it. Here's the framework that quietly protects both generations. Real help must reduce future need. If it doesn't, it's not help, it's maintenance. Real help must build independence. If it creates reliance, it's fragile. Real help must protect both sides. If the child collapses financially, no one wins. One-time emergencies are different from recurring problems. Emergencies deserve compassion and action. Patterns demand restructuring. Supporting systems is different from funding lifestyles. Covering a hospital bill is not the same as covering monthly shortfalls forever, and this part matters more than people admit. Protecting your own stability is not selfish, it's strategic, because you cannot help long-term if you burn yourself out early. This is where many people feel the fear rise. If I say no, I'm a bad child. If I set boundaries, I'm abandoning them. If I stop sending money, I'm disrespectful. None of that is true. Saying no to money is not saying no to love. Boundaries are not rejection, structure is not cruelty. Burning your future doesn't honor their sacrifice, it repeats it. Your parents sacrificed so you could have stability. Destroying that stability to relieve short-term discomfort doesn't honor them. It prolongs the cycle. The goal is not to stop helping your parents. The goal is to help them in a way that actually works. Family should be a source of strength, not collapse. And when help is done with honesty, structure, and dignity, both generations rise together. That's real love, that's real help, and that's how the trap finally breaks.